Durbin in a moment. You know him well, but I want to say a couple words about what he's meant to me and what he means to the Senate, and probably more importantly, the nation, in addition to the people of Illinois. But Kevin, I want to thank you for having us here again. Sometimes I get invited to places and I don't get invited back, so pretty good deal to come back. But I'm really honored that you're here at such a consequential time for our country. I don't need to catalog for you what is at stake in all these races, the presidential race, Senate races, House races, what's at stake for our country. You've been living it along with all of us. So I won't catalog those challenges or threats to so much that we hold dear. But none of this would be achievable if we didn't have not only members of our caucus to be able to, on some days, push back against those really extreme forces in the Republican Party, kind of the MAGA extremists in their party, which on most days have the steering wheel and control the agenda for their party. None of that would be possible without those numbers that Senator Durbin mentioned, 51-49. But it also means that you have to have good leadership. You can't just have the numbers, you got to have strong leadership. And Dick, of course, has provided that. I know what he means to all of you in terms of the people that he's helped, his constituents, your friends and neighbors, people that you know really well. And I can't itemize those achievements, but I can give you some sense of what he means to our caucus and to the nation. When he mentioned campaigning for me in 2006 and many times after that, you just multiply that by the number of people in our caucus doing that, up to and including doing as much for John Fetterman as I can remember anyone doing in 2022. And John had a really tough race. Not only was he under $100 million assault. Imagine $100 million dumped on your head of negative advertising. You know, Abe Lincoln would have trouble surviving that, right? Dick Durbin was there to help John throughout that long summer and into the fall, in those days when people thought, oh, he can't win, and he had that stroke and he's not coming back, and he had a difficult debate, and Dick Durbin stayed with him every step of the way, helping him in Chicago. And I think in a larger sense, beyond the electoral politics, all you have to know about Dick Durbin, his great work leading our Judiciary Committee, his work as a senator representing the state all the years he's representative since, 96, right? Your first election. But what he's done in the interests of justice for so many segments of American society, I'll just pick one of 100 that we could all talk about, and that's those young people in the DACA program. You know, there's a great line in the Bible, the Beatitudes. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for justice, for they shall be satisfied. Dick Durbin has hungered and thirsted for justice for those young people all these years. He's never, ever given up. And I'm just grateful for what he's done on that issue and in the broader issue of immigration reform. If Republicans in the House, I'll give a little credit to the Senate Republicans 10 years ago, if Republicans in the House had listened to him and agreed just to have a vote on the bill that he was working on with 7 other members of the Senate, a comprehensive immigration bill, think of where we'd be today. Think of all the benefits that bill would have brought to the nation. And we're still mired in this difficult challenge of dealing with all of the difficulties of not having comprehensive immigration reform done. So Dick, we're going to get there someday. And because of his leadership on so many issues and protecting so many rights that are now at risk. But I want to thank all of you for also participating in. I know I'm not the only senator that comes from Chicago with our handout saying, please help us again and again and again, in addition to so many presidential candidates. And I'm grateful you're willing to do it over and over and over again for us, because it would be easier and frankly understandable or justifiable for you to say, you know what, I'm just going to take 2 years off. I'm not going to do any politics. I'm not going to go to fundraisers. I'm not going to knock on doors. I'm not going to help candidates, and then I'll come back after 2 years. I'll just take a little rest. You haven't done that. You've chosen to engage and stay engaged, and to be so committed to helping candidates and helping us win. And I'm just grateful you're willing to help me in a race in Pennsylvania that was just recently added. This is, for many of you, breaking news, but I've lived with it for about 2 weeks now. I'm Mitch McConnell's 4th name on his target list. So every day I walk out of my apartment, I live now about 2 blocks in a basement apartment, 2 blocks from the Capitol, and I'm walking and I'm waiting for some strike, some negative advertising. I had one of those trackers, Dick, the other day. I was bringing my shirts up to the laundry, or to the dry cleaner. I didn't have the right kind of bag, so I had these shirts stuffed into this plastic bag, and I had hangers coming out. I was struggling to get to work, and this young woman comes up to me with a camera and starts screaming at me all these insulting leading questions, like, when did you stop? And I looked at her and I knew, that's a tracker and I gotta keep walking. The only benefit to that was twofold. Number one is I knew I was a target, and I know there's a lot more coming. And number two, for some reason the camera followed me into the dry cleaner. So at least the viewer, then they put it up on social media saying I was avoiding questions. At least the viewer thought, well, at least he does his own dry cleaning. So it kind of humanizes a senator for once, which almost never happens. But I'm truly grateful you're here to help us, and if we have time for questions, I'd love to stay. I don't know if Dick can stay, but we're just honored to be here with you. Thanks very much.